Deputy, going to take questions 62, 63, 73, 80, 90, 91 and 93 together. Could I ask the Minister and Deputies, because of the large number of people who want to get in on this issue, to abide by the Chair's ruling? The procedure here is the first question will be put on all of your halves by Deputy Heydon, I understand. The Minister will have 2 minutes to reply, and then I will allow each of you the 1 minute, and it comes back then to the Minister, and you'll have a final minute. Had you a query, Deputy? Is that all right? Okay. So, Deputy Heydon, you might put the question 30 seconds.
Minister, you relieved the concerns of many pensioners and families around the country last January when you announced changes for those in receipt of reduced contributory pensions post-2012 due to some anomalies in the yearly averaging system. I would like to get confirmation on behalf of those due to be reviewed that the process as outlined last January is continuing, and the timelines for the reviews later this year and adjusted payments early next year are on track.
6, if not, go away.
I'll be real brief. Thanks, Deputy, and thank you for all of the deputies that have put down questions on this particular issue, because on the 23rd of January last, I was very pleased to be able to put a proposal to Government and have them agree to it that would allow pensioners affected by the 2012 rate changes in bands to have their pension entitlement calculated on what is going to be the new total cons approach basis, including a provision for up to 20 years of a new home caring credit. Legislation will have to be enacted to enable the implementation of these arrangements, and a number of options regarding the best approach for myself to passing that legislation is currently being considered. In addition, a new information technology system has to be developed in line with the legislation, and my department are currently working on both of those projects, Chairman, and they're at a very, very advanced stage. The next thing that we have to do is to design the procedures that we will work with the next couple of months. We are currently recruiting some temporary staff that will be the people that will actually do the reviews, and then we're going to start carrying out, I suppose, the actions and the reviews. The department will be writing to the 67,000 impacted customers in the next coming weeks to explain to them what's happening and exactly how the process of review of work will be done. And as I stated previously, it still plans to commence these reviews and complete them hopefully by the end of the year, with the first payments being made in the first quarter of 2019, backdated where relevant to the end of March 2018, or later where a person attained their 66th birthday after the end of March 2018. And I think, just to be reassuring people if they are listening, it's not necessary for people to contact the department on the matter, because once the legislation is passed and the systems are processed and are ready, the department will write again to the people impacted and provide them with the opportunity to have their pension recalculated. They will then have the opportunity, once they're presented with the recalculation, to decide whether they want to stay with their old pension payment or move to the new pension payment. And I've been asked on a number of occasions, Chair, whether there will be winners or losers in this particular recalculation, as probably has happened on different occasions in the past. I can absolutely assure the deputies and people listening that there will be no losers, because anybody who gets recalculated and their payment is smaller than their current payment, well then obviously they will choose to stay on their current payment. But the anticipated outcome is that of the 67,000 people who were adversely affected, they will be affected positively by the recalculation, and they will obviously move to the new positive payment.
Transparent. I'm going to take the members in the order as the questions come in. So it will be in this order. Deputy Heydon will be first then Deputy Moynihan, Deputy Durkan, Deputy Fitzpatrick if he comes, Deputy Smith if she comes, and I think Deputy Bree Smith can't be here, but Deputy Neve Smith's name is here as well. So, Deputy Heydon.
I'd like to thank the Minister for her response. Minister, I'm glad to hear you reiterate the details of the plan, which were originally announced in January, are on track. You know, some of those affected have started to think that maybe it wasn't going to happen because they're not hearing about it in the media as much. And I suppose after many years of campaigning, they're nearly afraid that to believe that the issue is finally going to be resolved once and for all. And I think great credit is due to you, not just for that announcement last January, the work that you and your officials have undertaken since to be in a position to undertake what is going to be a very significant review. And I welcome the fact that you said those letters will issue in the next coming weeks. as I know you were very aware of the issue that caused upset and frustration and hardship for many affected since 2012, the payment of a weekly reduced pension reinforced that feeling that their work caring for families down through the years was unrecognised, and that's a really important step here. A couple of quick questions. Can you confirm that an allocation will be set aside as part of this year's budget then to make the necessary repayments for next year? You talk about 67,000. Is that the total amount of people in receipt of contributory pensions post-2012? Will people get letters about the review who aren't covered by it? Will the 67,000 all issue together, or do you expect that to take a couple of weeks? I know it's a lot of letters, but obviously there'll be a lot of people. If some people get a letter and others don't, how quick do you think it'll be?
Please, we must stick to the time. Deputy Moynihan.
Minister, when the announcement was made earlier this year about correcting the 2012 anomaly, there was great satisfaction and people were very keen on seeing that progress. It was understood that there would be legislation advancing in the earlier part of the year with a view to having the letters issuing around about now and through the autumn and payments at the beginning of next year. Has that legislation advanced? Or my understanding is that it hasn't, and that people feel that things are slipping, timeline is slipping that little bit on it. Are you still on time for that? When will those letters realistically issue? Will they be this side or the far side of Christmas? So that people need the reassurance. They're very conscious of time, people who are affected by these 2012 cut, and they're very conscious that things would be happening as quickly as possible. You indicated, Minister, that you have temporary staff that you're going to be recruiting for that. How many, and when will they actually be there to conduct these reviews?
Deputy Durkan.
I appreciate the comprehensive nature of the Minister's reply. Could I ask if it might be possible at this stage to give some indication as to, given the number of people who are likely to opt for the higher of the two, being qualified for two levels of pension, the extent to which provision is likely to be made to ensure that the system will work the way it is intended, obviously for the benefit of all, and whether or not people with contributions in this jurisdiction and other jurisdictions are likely to be affected in any way.
You were very cooperative in the first section with this. You're way under time, so on the basis we're to go back again to everybody, we might keep it this.
No problem at all. I'll certainly be brief. First of all, I'm very pleased to be able to have the opportunity, Deputy Heydon, to be able to reiterate. There is no delay. There is no change of anybody's mind or tactic. We are in exactly the same position as I would have announced in this chamber a number of months ago. Cabinet made the decision to change the anomaly. The legislation is well advanced, Deputy. The only thing that needs to be made up our mind is whether we do it in the Social Welfare Bill or whether I do it as a standalone piece of legislation, and that's given the timelines of this particular House. It's not, to confuse or conflate anything. I appreciate the comments, Deputy Heydon, but I just happen to be lucky that I was the Minister of Social Protection at a time when a large number of pensioners decided to mobilise over the years since 2012 when they had been affected by something that was unfair, unjust and discriminatory. And I want to pay particular tribute to those pensioners who were persistent in coming to all of our clinics on a weekly basis, and indeed Age Action Ireland for the coordination of that campaign that they did. But I am happy to say that this is one of a number of instances where people have shouted loudly and that government has heard, and we are able to obviously allocate the money, number one, in the budget. Number two, the 67,000 people are the full amount. Deputy, to answer your question, sorry, Deputy Durkan, I think it was you, not all of them obviously are in Ireland. Some 9,000 of those people live outside of the Republic of Ireland. They will all be contacted in the coming weeks, well in advance of Christmas, because I would hope and assume that the assessments will be done by then. To answer your question about the temporary staff, I'd say they will be all in place by the end of next week. Then they will go into training, and then the letters will go out and the assessments will start. I have absolutely no intentions of being here at the beginning of next year and not have, by the end of Q1, every single one of those 67,000 people who've chosen or chose to move to a new increased payment will have received their backlog their little lump sum and be on that new payment by the end of Q1 next year.
Thank you very much.
I hope
So
that
we'll
answers
go back to Deputy Heydon. Again, I'd ask the deputies to be as brief as possible.
Yes, Cahirlock, and thank the Minister for that reply. You're absolutely right. The pensioners that I dealt with in Kildare were very persistent, and rightly so. The ones that contacted me, the unfairness of it. It's one of those few times you're sitting in clinics when people are coming to you with a case, and you can't argue back with them because there was an inherent unfairness in it, and it really cut to the bone of people because it felt their contributions to the state down through the years was being questioned, and the role that they've played through their life and the choices they made in those lives. So I welcome that. I welcome confirmation that the 67,000 letters will go out probably as closely together as possible, because when some start getting the letters and others don't, if there's a 3 or 4 week gap between that, that'll cause consternation. So as close together as possible, notwithstanding what a big undertaking it is. I will just ask one other point, if any consideration could be given to the fact that one of the big bugbears for these people has been when they hear in recent years of a £5 increase in the pension, that they would then go on to the post office to get their pension and it wouldn't be a £5 because they were on a reduced amount. That maybe consideration might be given in this budget that if there was to be an increase, the full amount could be given to everybody, because obviously that is an anomaly that has driven home the inequality of the system up until to date.
Thank you. Deputy Moynihan.
And Gurmagat Minister, there's a lot of very useful information on it, and pleased to note the outline of the time on it as well, because the people who are affected by this 2012 situation, they're very conscious of time and want to see things advance as quickly as possible. Minister, you've indicated that you haven't decided at this point which type of, whether you're going to let it off as part of the social welfare or a standalone. Will that impact on the timeline, and when will you know on when you're going to advance that?
Look, again, I think we should acknowledge the fact that this particular change is very, very welcome, and is a huge benefit to an awful lot of people who made contributions, who worked extremely hard, sometimes for the state and sometimes in caring for others throughout their career, and got no recognition for it at all. So it is acknowledged that. Can I ask just finally that whether or not of the people who have combined contributions, as I mentioned, Irish and overseas ones, that they will receive the same treatment as everybody else, and that there will be no balancing of the situation where they might have a higher level from the UK, or will it be judged on the basis of achieving a pension in this jurisdiction of a particular amount?
Thank you very much. So, Minister, you have good books all around. Final comment from you.
Finally, Chair, I just wanted to temper so that there isn't an unfair expectation given. 67,000 letters are not going to go out on one day, because we haven't taken on board 15,000 people, temporary staff, to do this. They're going to go out over a number of weeks, and so the only thing I can ask you is for your assistance, that if one of your constituents get a letter and another one doesn't for a couple of weeks, to reassure them that the letters are coming. But genuinely, we had to assess and address this, that this was a fixing of an anomaly, but it has to come out of the current staffing funds that we will have for this year. We've managed to be able to secure, through some savings, money for temporary staff, but there's not a huge amount of temporary staff. There's enough for us to be able to do the reviews, to send out the letters, to do and complete the reviews, to stick to the timelines that we set out, Deputy Moynihan, is that by Q1 of next year, every single one of the 67,000 people who were affected that will get an increase in their payments will receive their little backlog and then go on to their new payments before the end of Q1. Nothing has changed, timelines haven't slipped. It makes no difference whatsoever to the timelines as to whether we include this piece of legislation as an amendment in the social welfare bill or have it as a standalone bill. It just might be easier to have it as a standalone bill, but we're working that out. But it will in no way impact on the dates for the final payments, or indeed the first payments, but this will be done over a phased period because it's a tremendous amount of people, and the staff in our department obviously are great, but they're not Wonder Women and men. And Deputy Durkan, to finally answer your question, because of the common travel area agreements that we have and the reciprocal arrangements that we have between ourselves and the United Kingdom particularly, the arrangements will be no different for people who live outside of the Republic of Ireland than those who live in. What we want to do is to give people the fullest payment that they possibly can from the contributions that they made, either in Ireland or any of our reciprocal states.
Can I just say how we can do business to the three TDs and the... No, we can't come in again. Well, it's no, it's 2 minutes. Well, can you clarify? Is that all right?
How many we've taken on, I genuinely don't know. Enough.
Is that okay, Deb?
I know just that there was mention of 15,000. Wow, no.
The whole department is working. Okay, are you happy with that?
Before now, for me.
Just in relation to the three deputies minister, I want to thank you all for your cooperation. It just shows how we can do business when everybody works together, and I really do appreciate that.
Thank